Welcome to Goon Squad's Decentralized News, where we cover this week's biggest stories affecting the crypto economy. I'm Piter, joined as always by Aussie. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me. Always good to do this.
Yeah, we're going to hit the major headlines, check in on macro and the Fed, take a speed run through some altcoins, and get a brief update on the Polygon meme coin universe that is developing as we speak. We're recording on December 9th. On December 4th, Bitcoin hit 100K for the first time, or 0.1 million for the first time, just getting started. It touched as high as 103, but this Monday morning we're down. Last time we looked at 97, going that way, 97 and a half. But still, it's the fifth Monday in a row, and MicroStrategies is buying another 2.1 billion, 2.1 billion worth 21,000 and a half Bitcoin. So
They're
enjoying little dips on Monday.
Yeah, it always seems to be they buy, things dip, and then start coming back up on Thursday, Friday. I almost wonder if they announce them on Monday but make the buys on Thursday, Friday. Like, that's what I'm wondering.
He's been putting out this tweet Fridays showing on the chart like their last buys or something like that. And by Monday morning, there's an announcement that they had already bought. So there's like this pattern with Michael right now. But it's interesting to watch Bitcoin around 100K and feel like eventually it's still some resistance and it's hovering back and forth. But eventually the 100K turns into a support. Kind of watching that unfold.
It's definitely been a resistance because within the same 24-hour period, Bitcoin hit 103, 104K depending on which chart you looked at, and then also dropped to 92. It was quite the chart candle on the chart looking at it.
That's the volatility that we all signed up for. But as far as volatility, maybe over the cycles, the gains go down, but also the volatility of the downside goes down a little bit. But we're expecting improvement in that. And President-elect Trump appointed David Sachs as White House cryptocurrency and AI czar. So I don't know that much about the guy, so I had to take a look at. He is a co-host of the All In podcast alongside Chamath, Jason Calacanis, and David Friedberg. I have heard of it. I don't listen to it too much. I think it came out on that podcast that he owns from Solana. I saw some video from that. But he was also previously the COO of PayPal and product leader. He co-founded Craft Ventures, an early-stage venture fund. He invested in things like Facebook, Uber, SpaceX, Airbnb as an early investor. And he has a lot of quotes on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. But just to take it all the way back, if you believe his own tweets, he has been a buyer of Bitcoin since 2013. And from what I could tell on a brief investigation of it, he seems to have some pretty deep conviction for Bitcoin.
Yeah, a guy that's been buying Bitcoin since 2013, according to himself. That would mean he's probably got a big bag that's worth fighting for, as cryptos are. Good to see someone out there representing crypto and AI within the White House, and someone that actually seems to have experience with it. So that's really important. And looking at some of the early stage investing that he's done shows he likes to take part in new tech. So I think that's worth watching. Looking at
new tech and get in early. PayPal was one of those companies that kind of brought the internet kind of out of the dot-com bubble. So yeah, he's definitely been a part of.
Absolutely. And thinking about like one of those other big companies that is a part of tech, but also just a part of everybody's lives, Amazon's also one of those fairly early companies, and they're facing a call on their board to consider investing in Bitcoin. There's an April 2025 shareholder meeting, and right now the National Center for Public Policy Research, which is a DC-based think tank, has shared a shareholder proposal that they think should be considered, and it suggests that that Amazon adopt a Bitcoin corporate treasury strategy. So this is considering allocating a portion of their $88 billion in cash or short-term assets to Bitcoin. There's big highlights around strong concerns over inflation and eroding purchasing power. So this is something that's interesting because we also know that Microsoft has faced a very similar vote, with that vote actually coming into force tomorrow. That's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, I want to watch this because these companies have huge amounts of cash reserves, and the shareholders are basically saying, "Man, cash is just a melting ice cube. Why don't we put some of it in Bitcoin, even if it is volatile, for the sake of the shareholders and your company value?" It's like risky not to have any position at this point. Getting riskier. The shareholders seem to notice it. Microsoft has been cold to it. The board advised against voting for it. Polymarkets has them at 13%. That these votes tend to go with what the board recommends, but we'll see how that plays out. And even Bill Gates, the co-founder, has been reluctant to embrace Bitcoin, calling it as recently as 2022 100% based on the greater fool theory. So not big endorsements coming from the elite in the company, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but it's pretty interesting considering these are two of the biggest companies in the U.S. stock market right now. It's
Right. These are like headlines when, oh, Bitcoin is surpassed the market cap of Microsoft or something like that. It's a
yeah,
big story.
no, they're some of the big leaders in tech. It's Tesla, Microsoft,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, for the most part. So that's pretty interesting. If you're in Europe, this is potentially even more interesting. The Czech Republic has announced that they're eliminating capital gains taxes on Bitcoin that's held for more than 3 years. So this was approved unanimously in their parliament, and this exempts Bitcoin from capital gains tax. So that is pretty cool. It takes into effect on January 1st, 2025. So doesn't help you this tax year, but hopefully you haven't sold your Bitcoin. And so this
More
is
encouragement to hodl.
exactly. So this is pretty interesting, and it was approved unanimously, which is pretty surprising. So looks like there might be a bit of a race towards the bottom on taxes on crypto. We'll see.
That would be great, but this really does encourage holding because, okay, so we're going this year into an improved regulation and legislative playground for Bitcoin, and the possibility of an capital gains tax getting reduced. Oh man, I should hold on a little bit and see if they can work some of this out.
Oh, absolutely. And this is not just a move that the Czech Republic's done. Italy has reduced their capital gains taxes on cryptocurrency from 42% to 28. Their capital gains taxes were still ridiculously high, and 28 is still higher than a lot of other countries, but they're coming down. So this is bullish for crypto and for people that have adopted Bitcoin and cryptocurrency early on.
Maybe some of the bad news that we're seeing the markets pull back a little bit. Coinbase users are reporting account restrictions and inaccessibility to funds. Coinbase support has come out and said, hey, there's a lot of misinformation and FUD out there. It's just because of increased demand. But still, there's a little bit of smoke out there about this.
Yeah, I'm siding with Coinbase support in terms of what's going on. What if anyone's knows banking laws? If you move more than 10 grand, the bank has to report it. And if you move over 100 grand, or even I think it's high five figures, you like that has to be flagged by the bank, and you like they've got to do fraud checks on that kind of thing. And so it doesn't surprise me that people that have started to really like onboard a lot of fiat, all of the stories that I've heard about people saying their accounts were restricted or they can't access their money is people that have onboarded like 50, 90, 100 plus K in very short periods. And so you've got to like Coinbase has to do its due diligence and make sure that there's no fraud involved. That's just first like smart practice and like proper practice. And then on top of that, the other people that are reporting account restrictions are people that just reactivated their accounts or their accounts had been fairly inactive for the last 2 years, 3 years in some cases, and are now trying to move large sums of money, 80, 90,000. And so to me, they've got to double check that it's you. They've got to make sure like they're trying to protect that you don't lose your money. And I really don't think that this is a huge story, but people love to cry wolf.
I think it's a reminder that not your keys, not your coins. This is a centralized exchange, and they're becoming a bigger player. Fear of a future black swan event. What if they're not solvent, or they're they're custodying a lot of Bitcoin? So there's a right to be fear and keep an eye on it. But yeah, it's not necessarily people never got their money back, or I don't know. It's just a restriction. So hopefully everything works out. It's not everyone's worst fears, but definitely a reminder: not your keys, not your coin. Bitcoin fixes this in a self-custody way.
Yeah, look, I onboarded some fiat today and yesterday, and they immediately, when I sent it, they're like, you'll have access to buy crypto right away, but you won't be able to pull it off exchange for 3 to 7 days pending your bank verifying the deposit. And that's perfectly reasonable to me. I think there's just people, I get it. Not your keys, not your coins. So definitely keep that in mind. But also, I do think that there's some misinformation or people who just don't know what they're doing, screaming and crying for no reason.
Yeah, and it's like you decided to do this, so just be careful before you commit more money than you're going to be comfortable with if you get restrictions on it. It is centralized. You're trusting this third party. So it's like some counterparty risk. Just be vigilant. But anyway, on the more positive story, Virgin Voyages becomes the first cruise line to accept Bitcoin for payments. Virgin Voyages, the luxury cruise line founded by Richard Branson, has made waves, in the crypto industry by becoming the first cruise operator to accept Bitcoin for payments. I think this is a pretty neat story, a real world use case that gives a step forward in the very long road for Bitcoin to evolve past kind of this store of value, speculative asset replacement for gold kind of idea to becoming an actual method of payment and true currency. I think it's possible and probably Bitcoin's final form if it ever gets there, but probably a long road to hoe for that. Exciting news.
Yeah, pretty exciting news. Richard Branson and Virgin Voyages moving towards that way. It could be a really good strategy for a company that's looking to build a Bitcoin treasury, accepting Bitcoin for payment, and then you're really just, it's like a lot of rewards programs, exchanging points or whatever. Might be something we see more of. That being said,
Yeah, it's a way to get a hold of this limited resource. You know what I mean? If you accept it as payment, as opposed to going out and buying it, you could be earning it and socking it away potentially.
yeah, one company that
If you're profitable enough.
has been stocking up on Bitcoin that we've talked about quite a bit is MetaPlanet, and they've partnered with SBI VC Trade to launch a Bitcoin shareholder reward program. It will distribute about 30 million yen worth of Bitcoin to over 2,000 eligible shareholders. This caused their stock to surge even more, up about 6% after the announcement. However, it is a lottery system to showcase how cryptocurrencies can be used not only as investment assets, but tools to incentivize and retain shareholders and stock and stakeholders. So interesting. I love it, but it's something
They're
new.
trying to end, you know what it made me think of is like a mining company. So they're actually producing Bitcoin. Imagine if they offered Bitcoin as a dividend. Would you want to hold a stock that would pay you a Bitcoin dividend? You know?
If it was a big enough company, yeah, like Marathon, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just they're innovating, they're trying. Their MetaPlanet doesn't produce Bitcoin. They're working with what they got, this lottery. But yeah, it made me imagine, oh, is it possible? Is it legal? Like, how would this work? You have a Mara, so it's like on the stock exchange. Would it be legal? Is it even possible to pay out a Bitcoin dividend? And how
It would
popular would that be if
probably
they
have to
did?
be like a Bitcoin ETF dividend, maybe, depending, just thinking about stock accounts. But
Yeah, but that's true. That seems reasonable. It's like something in the system already, so to speak.
yeah, talking about ETFs though, have you been looking at the ETH ETF lately? ETH's been performing quite well over the last little while, and it's seen very large inflows since their launch. So we've now seen about 430 million in inflows on December 5th, so a few days ago, right around when Bitcoin hit 100K. And ETH exchange, like ETFs, had really not seen inflows. They'd seen a net outflow of about $500 million, mainly from Grayscale, almost entirely from Grayscale, prior to the election of Donald Trump. And then since then, we've seen a net inflow of 1.88 billion into them. So this is pretty good for ETH. This is like the first sign of changing tides. Everyone had been pretty bearish on ETH, and now we're seeing maybe some bullishness around ETH.
I mean, I see the story and I think of that chart of a bull cycle where it's like Bitcoin runs first, major alts, smaller alts, meme coin, Ponzi season, right? Like, where are we in the cycle? This story makes me think of that. Okay, so Bitcoin all-time high. It's definitely seen a good, always goes first, or it seems to always go first. But yeah, then ETH. But it was like, is it going to happen, or are we just going straight to the major alts? But ETH has that advantage of the ETF. So there's an option. There's more on ramps. So there's more possibility of institutional investors. I feel like they missed out on Bitcoin. We can go hit up ETH for those gains.
Yeah, and honestly, it would make sense. Looking at ETH's ran significantly. Like when Bitcoin was in the 90K range, it started outperforming Bitcoin on a per
came
day
back
basis.
alive.
And it's even hit 4K. So it's not exactly taken out its former all-time high, but it's definitely, it's starting to flirt with it. And it's at 38.40 right now. But even if you look to just prior to the election or just around election day, it was sitting at about 3,000. So it really started taking off pretty quickly, almost going up 33% in over the last 3 weeks. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm excited to see ETH run. I was really heavily, this is not just sharing how I think about the market a little bit, but I was really Bitcoin heavy until recently, once it started approaching 100. And it's just, okay, what's next? And Ethereum starts stocking up on that a little bit. So I really turned off Bitcoin while it's running so hot for a little while and tried to focus on other things. And I think a lot of the market will think similar.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. One thing that could help the market is the interest rate decision on the 18th. This is expected to see a continuation of the cut cycle, with unemployment last week ticking up to 4.2%, which was in line with expectations, but above the 4.1% and the 4% that we've been seeing lately. The one thing that might play a bit against that is the CPI and PPI announcements coming out Thursday and Friday this week ahead of the Fed decision. So we'll see what happens. Do we see continued cuts or pause? Last week we were saying 60% chance of a cut. This week that's gone up to 90%. We'll see how the data shapes up. You've got an interesting question on our notes here. How low do you think interest rates will go this cycle?
Yeah, there's too much pressure with inflation to imagine it going to zero. So it's okay. So then where? I don't know. I'm imagining somewhere in 2% range, but I'm not really an expert on it. What are we sitting at? We'll go down to 4.25 if we go down one more.
Yeah, I think that's it.
4.25. I don't know. What do you think? I don't think it's going to zero for sure. If I saw something in the ones, I guess I wouldn't be that shocked. If it touches that, maybe as a terminal rate briefly.
Yeah, I'd see high ones as a possibility, but we're probably looking at low twos is what I would expect.
Let's see. All right, should we get into the speed run?
Yeah, let's look at the speed run. There's quite a few items this week.
Polygon will release Ag Layer version 0.2, the testnet. That's today. So this will allow December 9th, allow any chain to interoperate and connect through the Ag Layer. This is the last major step before the public mainnet. It hasn't officially been announced, but expected in the first quarter of 2025. I know you were speculating, you think maybe February.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be early February is the date that I've heard.
Nice. Frax Finance will announce a major token upgrade in its new roadmap in the next few days. So you may see some action there.
Treasure DAO, which is a popular gaming ecosystem that was originally on Arbitrum, but I know they've moved since. They're set to make an announcement on December 11th, so in a couple days. And Aptos is going to also see a major unlock, about $165 million worth, on December 11th. Most of this is going to early investors and core contributors, so maybe a little bit of sell pressure, or maybe the reason why Aptos hasn't exactly been off on the rush as much as some of the other tokens in the last week or two. So
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the older tokens take off too. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, maybe people are, this is already priced in a little bit. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on Sonic, previously Phantom, the public mainnet expected to deploy soon. So may see some action there. What's going on in the Polygon meme coin space? I saw Gator all over Twitter this weekend.
yeah, so Gator had a huge presence at Art Basel. The aggregator was very popular and getting tons of pictures taken with them. And alongside
Everyone
that,
wants to know who's under the mask now, dude.
oh, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. That's a secret. It's the aggregator.
I'm worried it's Choose Rich.
No, it's not Choose Rich. I can tell you that much. But that also led to a Gator all-time high over the weekend, about 340K. They've pulled back since, but still healthily within the 220K range. Worth watching. Polydoge has also been running quite a bit, up about, I think, 12 or 13% today. So that's pretty big. And looking at kind of other news, Ubet, which has partnered with a lot of meme coins, is running a little bit of a bracket right now with voting for the different meme
Right.
coin communities.
There's 16 meme coins in there or something?
Yeah, there's 16 meme coins. Go vote for Goon right now. They're competing against Alama Inu and Jimmy, which hasn't even graduated. Go give them your votes. They're at a little bit of a discount right now because they had a major whale sell. Not Jesse Uckle or your friend Andy, but a bigger holder, leading to some very nice, healthy distribution. So worth watching and maybe scooping some up while it's at a discount. But even then, it was getting scooped up pretty fast the last I checked.
Who's on the leaderboard on win bargains right now? Who's number one to graduate?
Oh, I think that's Craw right now. Craw's most likely is the closest to graduation. That being said, Peanut, Star, that's a rug with an arrow, Jimmy, Polygoat, 90 speakers, and Puxalotl, all amongst the most recent traded. Puxalotl really randomly appeared over the weekend. It's already at an $8,000 market cap. So
we got
watching.
Jimmy up to 13, Taco at 11, Wen, which has been there forever. It's just always there at 14. Yeah, Puxalotl, how's that how you say it? Puxalati?
Yeah, Puxalotl.
It came out of nowhere. But we'll see what happens with these. Be real careful with these. These are pre-launch. So, right on. Of course, not financial advice. Do all your own research. We're here for educational and entertainment purposes only. And we'll see you next week. Oh, no. We're not going to do the show next week, are we?
Yeah, so we won't see you next week. We'll probably see you the week after, and then we'll take a little bit of a break for Christmas. So unfortunately, we won't be there, folks, but we will see you again soon.
Thanks for joining us.